It's a 2006 Cadillac STS 4.6 liter LH2 rear-wheel drive. I'm going to be repairing the water pump. First thing I did here was take off the air intake tube that connects the air filter to the throttle body. Next thing I'm going to do is release the tension on the tensioner and take the belt off. The part we're working on is here's the water pump. My water pump is actually leaking like a sieve. I took my breaker bar, placed it 1/2 inch into the tensioner, turned it to the right. That takes the tension off, and as you can see, the belt is loose there. That is the, looks like power steering pump, perhaps. That's the best pulley to release the belt from, to relieve the tension of its job and relieve the tension off of the belt. I'm going to use a 10mm deep well socket to remove the 4 bolts that hold the water pump in. You don't have to use a deep well. The heads to the nuts are not deep. So before I started the job, I took off my lower hose and drained out all the antifreeze. You don't want to let that stuff get into the environment. You'll notice here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts that hold this on. It almost seems like a really simple job. I've never done it before, but just looking at it in concept, it seems easy. I have here the hardest bolt. It's the lower bolt in the water pump to get out. So it's like a blind bolt. I was able to get to it, took it out no problem. One thing I like to stress to anyone who's new to car repairs or decide they've done repairs before, but make sure you put the thread sealant back on here. It looks like the blue Loctite. It's very important. This water pump lasted me 200,000 miles, and if you want your car or things to last as long as you think they should last, try to put them back together at OEM quality or better. Usually the manufacturer knows what they're doing, so kind of follow what they did or what they tell you to do, so that you get the same performance and quality out of the job. So I'm going to go ahead and take the other remaining 4 off, and come back to you. But this is the water pump that we're working on here, just above the fan. Just as a full disclosure, I just wanted to let the viewers know that I switched over to my pneumatic wrench. It wasn't bad at all with my manual wrench. However, these threads are quite long on here, so taking them off is just a lot faster with this. And I don't have to switch back and forth to get the clearance. I was using a short extension, a deep well, and you might even use a standard sized socket to get the distance you need to fit in between these two. But if you have a pneumatic wrench, that just kind of changes the game. So another thing you want to keep in mind, perhaps before you release the tension on the water pump, is to go ahead and loosen these 4 bolts up. Since I have a pneumatic wrench and a pneumatic drill, I can get that off no problem. But if yours are stuck on or you don't have pneumatic, you're going to want the tension from the belt to give you some resistance so you can knock those off. They're not on there too hard at all, at least on mine. Yours might be different, but that pulley will need to come off if it's not attached to your new water pump. Mine is not attached. Once you've removed all 5 bolts, as you can see here, you are going to want to take a rubber mallet or a piece of wood, a block of wood, and just give light taps until you can unlodge the water pump from the block of the engine, or I think it's actually sitting on another plate, so it's not screwed. I don't think it's screwed directly into the block of the engine. I think it's sitting on a face plate. You don't want to mess up, dent anything, scratch anything too much. It'll come back to bite you. So if you don't have a rubber mallet or some kind of soft wood, you might want to think about getting some right now. Before I tried my mallet, what I did was I took some of this MDF board here and wedged it between the tensioner and the pulley itself, and I just pressed it forward ever so slightly, and that dislodged the water pump from the engine. And then I'll go ahead and pull it out. And here she comes. So as you can see, this is a job where you don't have to remove too much of anything to get it out. And I think my issue here was with a rubber seal. I can see just from taking it out, this seal looks like she was ready to come. Let's see. So a lot of water, a lot of coolant actually leaking out from underneath the pulley itself. So I think, truly it was actually coming out the weep hole. This water pump gave me 200,000 miles, and from the looks of it, it's in great shape. I don't see any corrosion whatsoever on this pump, which is good news. For me, it means that hopefully the inside of my engine is in decent condition. This is, one of the first signs, or a good sign, to see, something this clean. Obviously, the type of metal you have is going to depend on corrosion factors as well. So if this is some kind of stainless material, then it's going to fare better than if there's lesser quality metals on other parts of the engine. So once again, you're going to want to get the pulley off if it's not attached to your current water pump. Mine isn't, so I'll go ahead and do this. I loosened mine up while it was still on the pulley, so I shouldn't have any issues here. Collect those. One of the areas critical to the success of your water pump sealing properly is having a clean surface. I took some wax and some WD-40 and tried to get any residue off of the outer edge there. The seal itself is actually internal, but you still want to try to get that resting faceplate as clean as possible. What I did was, since I drained the antifreeze out of the engine, I also took a vacuum cleaner and sort of sucked some of it out of this well down here so that this bottom lip can be dry, so that when I insert the new water pump, I'm ensuring that I have basically almost a factory type installation where everything is dry, and you just don't want leaking fluids over a seal that you're trying to make. I'm not going to put any type of sealant on that faceplate. There wasn't any when I took it off. Really, it's the O-ring that does all the work, so I'm going to continue to let the O-ring do the work and try not to deviate from that design. Now the surface is as clean as I can get it. I actually took a shim. I used both ends of the shim to really scrape off any calcium, what appeared to be calcium buildup or some type of buildup. Got the area dry. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the water pump. So I put a little bit of silicone on the washer inside of the water pump. It just helps the rubber maintain its elasticity. I've tighten the bolts down, but as you can see, the water pump is still loose in here. I'm going to tighten them off with my torque wrench, and I'm going to put this at 11 pounds per square inch. Or is it feet? I'm going to double check that. Yeah, I'm going to do 11 pounds per inch. See how that works. When I took my pulley off, it was spotted white from the degreaser. I went on ahead and cleaned it up. I recommend you do the same. I'm going to spray some silicone on the inside of here. I like to use PJ1. It's like a chain protector for the O-rings inside of like a motorcycle chain. I'm going to go ahead and spray it in here. It's a little bit sticky and it'll do great. Okay. Okay, finally I put the PJ1 Black Label chain lube on the outside of the pulley. Pulled the tensioner to get the belt back in place, made sure it was back over the pulleys in the correct order, and made sure that that double-sided grooved belt was evenly matched to the grooves on the pulleys. As you can see, there's 3 to 4 grooves that the belt fits into. So I made sure all that was fine. The next step here, one thing I wanted to mention is I ended up doing it to a 9. You want to go between 9 and 11 pounds on the bolts. Obviously, you want them all at the same poundage. It's important not to go too high because you'll definitely strip that out. You don't want that to happen. It doesn't need to be terribly tight, so just keep that in mind. A little bit of pressure is going to go a long way. It's not going to blow off, so don't over tighten it. You do want to tighten the bolts on the water pump in a certain order. I started with this far bottom bolt, and then I went up under to that bolt there, and then I went down to the bolt under the pulley, then I went up to this bolt, and then I went to the second bolt behind the belt there. Let's see. I can't see it. It's going to be right here. There we go. There we go. So that's the 5 in order. Let me zoom out. Sorry about that. And that takes care of the water pump on a 2006 Cadillac STS 4.6 liter LH2. This one here has 200,000 miles on it. Hopefully yours has more. Let's keep them going.